I think Lindsay Tanner's right, and you made the point that bad management has been a feature of some of our future planning, and I think that's probably right. I think we can do much better. The reality is we've known for some time that Australia is a destination that people want to come to. That is a challenge for legislators to provide for. Now, Bob mentioned, and I agree with him on some of the points he made, but he mentioned that we can't rely on average rainfalls, which have been the averages we've used for the last 100 years. That's correct. But we need to augment our water supply systems. We're not unique on that. This is happening in most countries around the world where they're looking at non-rainfall dependent water supplies, and has been the case in a lot of countries. So we will be doing that. And we will need to look at better density, and we will need to look at better public transport options. So these are challenges.
Mr.
But I make this point as well. I think if you're looking at what the community needs in the long term, it needs a better skill base. If we start driving down immigration levels, we will drive down our economy. I can guarantee you that. We will see growth levels reduce. We will see skills shortages right across the country, and we won't see the provision of modern infrastructure which is dealing with large population densities provided. I'll give you a quick example of that. If you look at in Bob's state, in New South Wales, during the Olympics, Access Economics did a study on this. It represented about 35% of Australia's economy, New South Wales. It's now down to about 31%. It's largely to do with a small population growth stimulating demand for goods and services. And you've seen Queensland and Victoria, because of that population push, increase significantly. Now, I don't think that's a good long-term formula for the country to drive down growth, and that's what will happen if we start to drive down migration levels.
You say that, OK, we will address the issues to do with water supply, we will address the issues to do with increased density, but at the moment people living in Sydney and Melbourne in particular, and Brisbane, are already highly concerned about traffic jams, about housing affordability, about water restrictions. They feel like their existing state governments haven't delivered well enough on that. How can we have any confidence for the future that when the nation's at 35 million, that situation's going to be any better?
Look, I understand that, Lee, and I think what we're going through is a period of significant and profound change. A good illustration of that is water prices. We have used water as if there was no tomorrow. We've suddenly realised there's a scarcity and we need to provide an economic base for reinvestment. That's why water prices have doubled across the country, but it's happened. And the public has largely accepted and supported that because it's investing in new sustainable water supplies. Well, the same will have to happen in a whole range of areas. In transport, in other areas as well, we'll need to reinvest, and the public will have to be a part of that. Yes, you can identify the problems because we're going through a transition. But if we somehow say that we can turn back population and we therefore don't need to invest, we are on a path for a calamity. We should recognise that our population will increase, and we'll have to invest to provide for supporting that with a high-quality lifestyle. That is the challenge ahead of us.
Mr Carr, I noticed you have a chuckle when Mr Brack said we're on a path to calamity.
Well, the point I make is, for the advocates of high immigration, and Steve, of course, is among the more reasonable of them, what is the limit? What is the limit? Is any limit recognised? Is it 100 million, 50 million for this land? And does it take the remotest account of Australia's carrying capacity? On one windy day, soils blow from Central Australia 1,400 kilometres away. We do not know whether the drought that is affecting such a large area of Australia at the present time is a drought that's going to recede like the Federation-era drought, or a warning of long-term changes in rainfall patterns. We've seen those changes in Perth, and they are very, very troubling. Steve talks about new technologies, new approaches to water management getting us through. Does that mean we have to have a desal plant on every Australian headland? I want to deal with the economic arguments. The fact is, there's been serious study that shows increased immigration worsens and doesn't relieve skill shortages. You import a tradesman, a qualified tradesman, coming here to make a contribution. He brings with him his dependents, and the studies confirm that ramping up immigration actually exacerbates skills shortages rather than relieves them. The same point has been made about the simple idea that increased immigration solves the problems associated with the ageing of the population. Bob Birrell, who's Australia's best academic expert in population policy, points out that over the long term it has the most marginal impact on age distribution, and you have to run very high immigration to even have that marginal impact. High immigration produces a surge in activity associated with housing, building new shopping malls, but it produced new costs for a lot of the rest of the economy. It's a very simple view of economic management to say we won't worry about increasing output per person. We're just going to ramp up overall economic activity.
Steve Bracks, I wonder if the argument about increasing population and in support of population growth is in step with the broader public. Do you fear that there will be any sort of Pauline Hanson-style backlash to any increased immigration to Australia?
I think this is a significant issue and reflects on the comments that Bob made before, that what is the acceptable level of population increase, and as a part of that, what is our net overseas migration intake increase. That is a key issue. We've never, and not since the post-war period, have we come to a clear position on that. And I think there has been largely a fear of opening up that debate, of having a definition around it, and then arranging for the planning for environmental support and infrastructure support for that to happen. And this is where Bob and I agree. I would like to see a settlement on that issue. I would like to see much more debate and discussion about what our population increase should be.
And do you have a number in mind?
Once we have that consensus, well, I don't think Ken Henry is that far off. I think, we are very likely to go to a population of around about 30 to 35 million. And if that's the case, let's look at what is manageable and sustainable, which will assist in providing a better skill base for our country and a better growth prospect for our country and better provision of services. But let's have an agreement about that. Now, in the absence of an agreement, we have these endless debates about what the public would accept. We don't have an open and transparent description of what our overseas migration intake will be, and it creeps up or it creeps down. And I think we'd be better off settling on a figure, and I would be keen to be a part of that. And in doing that, though, you actually start providing for the future. You start planning properly.
All right, before you go, I can't have a former New South Wales Premier on the program without asking you about some of the recent events in politics in that state. Mr Carr, the Prime Minister
says... I actually wondered about that, Lee.
You were expecting me to bring it up earlier, I'm sure.
I thought it might come up, yes.
The Prime Minister says it's time for Labor MPs in New South Wales to get their act together. Is he right?
I agree with him completely. I've got a very, very high opinion of Kristina Keneally. I think she's got the makings of a very, very impressive Premier. But if there is the faintest suggestion that a single Labor MLC has got influence over policy and personnel, the government will get such a thumping at the polls, they won't know what hit them. So the challenge for Kristina is to demonstrate that she truly is making decisions uninfluenced by Eddie Obeid, because the public backlash, if it's considered that he's got influence over the government, the policies, the choices it makes, will be savage indeed. But she is a very, very competent woman. She's impressed everyone she's encountered and worked with during her time in state politics, and I wish her well.
Is state Labor in New South Wales electable?
Yes, it is. But I think there are some things they've got to do. I think Nathan Reeves was facing up to some major challenges. I think it's got to say, for example, this is just one example of a policy-driven approach. There will be no more coal-fired power in New South Wales. That we can meet the energy requirements of the state through gas and renewables. We don't have to incinerate more coal, and that would get support because it's sound policy. I think the government's got to be bold enough to do that. And talking about another environmental challenge, it's got to be bold enough to say the river red gums will be saved. Victoria, this would never have happened in my day, Steve, you would have agreed. Victoria took the lead on this environmental issue from New South Wales by saving the river red gums on its side of the Murray. New South Wales has got to have the big, generous national parks that saves this part of the old Australian continent for all time. A policy-driven approach can see Labor under Kristina re-elected.
We're out of time. Bob Carr and Steve Bracks, we really do appreciate your time coming in to talk to us about population. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lee.
My pleasure.